Good afternoon. My name is Amol Nirgudkar. I'm the CEO of Prism, and I am here with Paul Edwards, who is from CEDR HR Solutions. He's their CEO and co-founder. Paul is the recognized authority in HR, especially in our community, which is dentistry. He speaks at all the conferences. He is the resource par excellence when it comes to all issues HR. Today, we are going to talk about HR issues, especially during this crisis. The crisis of coronavirus, all of us know we're sitting at our houses doing these things, and it's really brought our industry and our country to a halt. And one of the most important decisions we're making today, as far as our survival of our practices, to maintaining cash flow is our people, our team members. And when we're making those decisions, obviously they relate to human resources, and a lot of questions come about of what is it that we need to do? Should we lay off employees? Should we furlough them? There's lots of labor issues that are important. That's why I have Paul here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And right off top of the bat, I want to ask you this: is what are the top HR concerns? You work with thousands of dentists all over the country. What are the top concerns that dentists are having today?
Well, Amal, before I do that, I do want to thank you for having me on, and really appreciate that you're reaching out to the community and making this information available to people as fast as possible. I think it's really good of you guys to kind of transform your learning platform to an information platform here for a couple of weeks and reach out to people. So thank you. I really appreciate being able to talk to the listeners. Top HR concerns right now for dentists, I think, is cash flow and long-term survivability. You might think of that as a business concern, but mixed right in the middle of that is your employees and your payroll. And that's a big part of your expenses, is at least 25% of all your expenses, one of your largest, biggest expense in one thing. And so I think that's one of the biggest concerns, is how do I take care of my people and my business? And they should be thinking about this long term, not just about when is the virus over, but when, how do we get the practice back open? And when we do get the practice back open, what is that going to look like? And then really, again, like I said, I think you even will have to be dealing with this 6 months from now, especially if we go through the economic downturn that everybody's talking about.
So the questions obviously are around, what part of your team you retain as a skeleton crew, for example, and what part of the team do you furlough or lay off, and there's a lot of confusion around those terms lately, especially as it relates to what's happening in Washington with the act that passed a few weeks ago, the Families First Act. There's a new legislation in front of the president that's still stuck somehow in the politics, that hopefully will be signed soon. So let's go into that a little bit, because I think people are waiting to find out some clarity from the government of what they need to do, because there's like, should I fire them or not fire them? Am I going to get paid for this credit or not? So there's a lot of situations around that, and the unemployment benefits, are they going to come or not? Is that $600? Is it relevant or not? So in that, I know, and we might end up doing another one when this is all clarified, and we could like, okay, here's the law. But as of now, I'd love your viewpoint on the legislation that is currently law and the new legislation that will become law, most likely, hopefully by the weekend or Monday.
Well, I think the first thing is, let's talk about the Family First Act, which passed and is signed into law. A bill is a bill on the Hill until it's signed into law, and that one got signed into law. But the bill that is a bill on the Hill right now has some amendments in it to the previous law that was passed, and it has some content that is going to change how that first law works, and it may even make a couple of the provisions in it moot. And so in response to that, we found in both the DOL and IRS guidance a couple days ago that they are delaying what they're calling enforcement of the Family First Act, the provisions that we all care about, for 30 days. And what happens when a bill becomes a law, you know this, Amol, then once it becomes a law, that it has to be sent out to all the regulatory bodies within the government, and they all have to write some rules and guidelines and say, this is who qualifies, this is who doesn't, this is who it applies for. And so that's why we had so much confusion around that first law, is because most people don't even notice that a law passes.
Right.
And much less the fact that it doesn't even go into effect for another few days. It's not actually law of the land yet. It's signed, but it doesn't kick in until the 2nd. So presumably they were going to get an opportunity to provide some clarity, but right at the tail end of that comes this new legislation, which I certainly believe is going to be signed today. That's what I believe. Today being 3/27. So with them saying we're not going to enforce the other law for now, we're not going to enforce the provisions of it, I think that we can take a little bit of a pause here on it. And the two things that people were concerned about was, if you get an order to shelter in place in your area, do you have to pay the 2 weeks, which was built into it, for 80 hours, by the way. A lot of people were like, what if they only work 32 hours? I'm like, that wasn't in the law. They didn't say, and dentist office who only work shorter weeks, it's 32 hours. They said 80 hours. And then the second half was a provision that seemed to imply that if someone, if you were in a shelter, under a shelter in place order, that you might have to pay someone who had to be home to care for a child up to 12 weeks underneath a new FMLA rule. And there was no guidance around that, and no guidance ever came out around that. So that still sits waiting. And the IRS even came out with some words on a page that helped last Thursday, but in the middle of all that guidance, they said, oh, and about this 12-week thing, we're going to give you some more rules. And so we really don't have it. And let me just make it even more confusing, Amol. We're not sure as professionals that shelter in place means the same thing as quarantine. And so we're not sure that these shelter in place orders qualify the employers to be hit by this.
Correct.
And then finally, there was this rumor that we were going to be able to exclude ourselves if we had 50 or fewer employees. And where that played out so far is that you would be able to apply to exclude yourself.
Right.
You would have to prove to the DOL that if you paid this one employee or these 49 employees FMLA, that it would bankrupt you. And I'm going to go one step further, because I think it's important, because they said we're not going to enforce it for now. So I want to put everybody's mind at ease. If for some reason they decide in retrospect that we all had to pay that money, since they're not enforcing, we're going to be able to go back and pay the money that we're supposed to pay, either the 2 weeks or portions of the 12 weeks. The good thing is, though, that they are very clear in their guidance. If you do have to do that, you will get a tax refund for the full amount 2 weeks later back through your payroll system. So it's a matter of, Amol, you get this, you've got the background for it. That becomes a cash flow issue.
Yeah.
What we were concerned about before we got the guidance on Thursday of last week was, is this a tax credit sometime in 2021? Right. And how do we get there? Again, a lot of this is moot, because I would venture to guess that 70% of the country or more is shut down now. So the question is now that I have my employees laid off in some form or fashion, would this law even apply to me? Because how could a caregiver, she or he is at home already. So I want everybody to relax about the Family First Act and know that enforcement has been delayed.
Well, in terms of it only applied after April 2nd, right? So if you did lay off your folks before that,
or got sheltered in place, yeah,
and then it really doesn't apply.
That's what we believe. But, in a stroke of a pen, a regulator could go, oh, no. The intent of Congress was for it to be retroactive. And if they stroke that pen, we're still not in any trouble because we got full tax credits to pay us back for that.
The frustrating part is, and I don't blame the government. It's a lot to do, right?
It's a
A
lot.
lot to do in a very short period of time. The IRS is not geared to writing regulations on the fly like that.
No,
It takes them a little time, and sometimes it takes them a few times to get it right.
it
Uh,
does.
and the challenge for our dental practices really is, do we hold on to these employees or not, right?
Mhm.
And I think the clear answer, at least as of now, I mean, we'll see what happens today,
Mhm.
is that you do considering you may not get any money from the government, you've got to do that. I mean, and at some point, if you uh, and do it now, right? And but reduce your burn as much as you can. What do you think about that idea?
Amal, I agree with you 100%, man. That we came out the day after. I mean, we're talking Monday, 2 weeks ago now. That first day when the world started to go tipsy turvy, and we kind of went into bizarre world, and we started telling our 2,000 members, it's you need to move towards layoff. We need to conserve your funds. And there was still a lot of questions there, but we could see this thing coming. I mean, it's not, CEDR, my company, we started to prepare for this about 6 weeks ago. We were getting information from overseas. We just happened to be in a position to be able to get information. I have a friend who is married to a doctor in Italy. I was getting information that was telling me that what I was hearing here was not true, was not accurate. And
Wow.
I went to my team and said, we're about to probably have a problem here. And so we were preparing for it. Now, given that, that meant that we were ready on Monday to at least say, we think this is a longer term thing than 2 or 3 weeks. We don't have any guidance on what to do about funding for you guys. You need to get your people off the payroll because we don't believe you're going to be generating income within a week to a week and a half.
So here's one thing I want to talk about is yes, this is important, but a lot of dental practices out there don't have their HR uh, handbooks there, right? They don't have any infrastructure. They've never faced this situation before. And so a lot of them have questions about, okay, what do we do? What's the strategy? How did CEDR help when you found out 6 weeks ago this was a crisis? What is it that, and what do you go out and tell a dental practice that has no infrastructure for HR? What do you do?
Well, I'm gonna say this. Our company was founded in 2006, and I've been a business owner since I was 30. I'm 58 now. I have always, up until the time that I created this company, that exact problem that you just talked about, no formal structure on HR. The organization sort of ran itself. If it had good employees, it was great. If it had bad employees, it wasn't great. So, excuse me, Amol. So when I founded it as support first and the handbook is second. And our clients know that. It's that in order to get good HR support and the kind of knowledge that we were able to offer last week, you needed to be in the fold with us. And for us to be able to help you, we needed to make sure that we had created a handbook and put you through training. So nobody gets a handbook from us. No doctor gets a handbook from us without going through like a 2.5 hour training with us when we give it to them and customization and stuff. So I'm telling you that just to answer the question that our clients expected for us to be able to give this answer, whereby when you're getting handbooks from your payroll company and almost other sources, they treat it as a commodity, and we treat it as a living, breathing document to help our problem solvers not get you in trouble. So,
It's
so
not a
it's
template, right? It's not a template. But
yeah,
here's the thing, right?
yeah,
Let's say I'm a dentist. I have a dental practice. I have no HR infrastructure in place.
yeah.
I have to make some difficult decisions. Um, and I call you, Paul. Looks like you're the expert in this. What do
Mm-hmm,
I do?
mm-hmm,
What are you going to tell them? I have nothing, right? And I have a decision to make. I have laid off some people. I have
mm-hmm.
some other decisions to make. I don't know how to lay them off correctly. I don't know what conversations to have with them. I just don't have anything. I've just been a dentist practicing.
So, Amal, can I have that conversation with people now and just kind of tell them what I think they
Sure,
should do?
absolutely. I think people want to hear that.
Okay. All right. So here's my guidance to you from HR, and this is a business to business guidance. This is a guy here who has 42 employees, a $1.7 million payroll per year. I have the same fears that you have. I'm going through the same emotions that you guys are going through. Fortunately for me, my employees can go home and work remotely. And fortunately for me, I'm positioned in a way where people need my services. So I'm not losing, like you are, patients left and right that are canceling or can't come in because they're sheltered in place. So I want to recognize that difference. Here's what I recommend for you. The same thing I recommend for all of our members right now. Make the decision. If you don't have money coming in, some of you have been paying your employees out of your own pocket, hoping this thing's going to work out in some way. And I think that you're burning through valuable cash that you're going to need 6 months from now. That's what I think. I believe that the first thing that you should have done and can still do is pull down your line of credits, call all your mortgage companies and tell them your payments are going to be late, put things on pause, except for your HR company. Just a little joke there, Amol. And just basically pull in all your resources, and that includes cutting off your payroll to the degree that you can. And then you communicate to your employees. This is very important. You want to be super transparent. You communicate to your employees what you're thinking right now and where you are, that you're gathering. You communicate to them that you believe it's important that they go ahead and get into the unemployment, into the system and go ahead and apply, and that it's okay for them to go ahead and apply for full employment, even though a few people will be working a few hours. So that's okay. Someone can be on full employment and start working again. They just have to report that income, even if it's from you and you just laid them off. So it's okay for you to do that. So the next question is what's the difference between furlough and layoff? I keep hearing the two things. What we've learned is it's a matter of semantics right now. They mean different things to different states, different unemployment commissions, and our main concern was about health insurance, group health insurance plans. And there are some plans which, if you furlough people, will allow you to continue to pay their insurance and it's not a COBRA event. So that's the next question. What should I do about their health insurance? Our guidance was that you should continue to pay it, that this is an extenuating circumstance, and don't issue the COBRA letter, and let's wait for direction from the government or from the insurance companies. And that has actually played out pretty well. For the most part, and I've got more than anecdotal evidence, I have seen insurance companies communicating back through written letters to employers saying, it's okay, as long as you pay your portion and their portion and keep it paid, we will continue to keep them in the plan. We'll work with you until we all figure out what's going on. Now, I have seen a couple of anecdotal reports that a few insurance companies didn't play that way, and I believe that they will be brought to and get smacked and put in line for doing that.
Okay.
So again, that's kind of where we are. So we lay them off, work stoppage, furlough, call it whatever you want. Go ahead and get them into the unemployment line to apply. And it's okay if you have them doing some work for you along the way. You just pay them through your payroll. They report it. When they report it, the unemployment people will reduce their unemployment benefit by just a little bit, their state benefit.
That's strange. I mean, so let's say I have an employee that works full time for me.
Yep.
And I pay them $50,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, by the way, I'm going to cut your hours down to 50%.
Yep.
Because I don't have enough work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you apply for unemployment?
That's it. It's go apply for unemployment, and I'm going to be reducing your hours to this amount for right now. And you can always add or reduce hours once they're in the best position, and you are too. And then the next thing I think is important is you heard me talk about state unemployment insurance. There's also now something that's a federal spiff that they're getting ready to stick in here. So on top of whatever they get from the states, by the way, unemployment's always been states, and they sent a bunch of money to the states, but now it appears that they're going to add $600 a week to each employee's benefit. So in Florida, I think the top you can get is like $275, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
Maybe
I was close to 300, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So then they're going to get another $600 on top of it each week. And I have, I'm a business guy, and I don't know how you generate money like that and give it to people and don't think to yourself, well, what's to make them not want to just go on unemployment and not work, and not ever come back.
That's right. And
It's
that
a
was, I
great,
think, the contention. That was the contention that three of the Republican senators had about there were some places in South Carolina, for example, that people were $55,000 was the unemployment compensation annualized.
right.
Um,
And it didn't make
what
sense.
incentive is it for people to come back to work?
Yeah, it didn't make sense. So I want to address that in two ways. Philosophically, I'm just going to say this first. Now, let me go the other way, because I believe philosophically, people who are listening are going to be able to hear that better if I say the first part, the second part first. This is not forever. This is only for a few weeks. As soon as you open back up, and we'll talk about that, and you offer them their job back, they go off of unemployment. They can't stay on unemployment and refuse to come back to work. And so this is just for a short period of time to help them out. There are other limitations around unemployment. So this $600 is just for a short period of time. Philosophically, I have a question for everybody who's listening. When you open back up a month from now, 2 months from now, 2.5 months from now, would you rather your customers, who are other people's employees, have more money or less money to purchase your services with? It's plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like for them to still be somewhere close to whole.
Right.
And so while at first I didn't love this, I believe that the strategy of unemployment benefits with this bump in the middle and the SBA loan that we're about to talk about put together is kind of brilliant. I think it might actually make this 50% less worse when we come out on the other end.
And that's super crucial to understand. Absolutely. So that's why I think having a good advisor like you is so crucial. Having your set of advisors that have the pulse of what's going on is going to help you make a really smart decision. And even as it relates to getting the SBA line, because if you're able to take an SBA loan that's going to be amortized over 30 years at what 3.75%. I mean, it does wonders to your cash flow, right?
It could do wonders for your cash flow. And then if we talk about this new loan that's contained within the new bill, and we can move to that.
Sure.
So this new loan, the way this is going to work is you are going to apply for it through the SBA.
Sure.
This is not a conventional SBA disaster loan. Those have been available. Those are sitting on the website right now, although I hear the SBA's website's constantly crashing.
Yes, it is.
You applied for that loan, 3 or 4%. You had to qualify for it, and then, like you said, they'll amortize it out for like many years. This new loan is different. We'll just call it the coronavirus loan because that's what it's for. An employer will have to prove what their average monthly payroll is, and and the number of employees that they had on payroll. And they will look back to last year. There's a period in last year that they're going to use. And then you can apply for the loan for that amount times 2.5. So if your payroll were $100,000, I'm just, going to make it, let's just say it's $50,000.
Okay.
You will be able to apply for a loan for $125,000.
Well, and what if? Okay, so question is,
Mm-hmm.
I just laid off all my employees. Let's say I had 50 employees. Now
Right.
I only have 5. But over the last 12 months, I had all 50 of them, and
Yep.
I had my payroll expenses were $1 million. Let's just say take even numbers.
Yes.
$1 million 12 months. So you think I can qualify even if I fired them, I can
Yep.
qualify for 1.25 times or 2.5 times?
2.5 times. You having laid your employees off during this period or been given a shelter in place order has no impact whatsoever on you being able to apply for and to qualify for this new loan. So there's some misinformation because of this law and some of the law that went into effect 2 weeks ago that now feels like a year ago.
Sure.
that goes into effect on April 2nd. And if you didn't have your employees on payroll, you couldn't take advantage of it. And all that needs to everybody needs to just let that go.
Okay, so the question, and you may not be able to answer it yet because obviously the law is not passed yet, is that so the guidelines are going to be as simple as that? Are they going to do the whole 9 yards with PFS and everything?
No, it's written into the legislation that they are not allowed to qualify them for the loan beyond proving that they were in business and those parameters I gave you, which was their payroll amount, their average payroll amount. By the way, if you're a new business and you just opened this year, I believe that they'll take the period between February 1st and the end and February 29th of
And
this
annualize
year.
it, maybe
And
annualize
just
that
kind
and
of
see.
annualize it. But again, we're just looking for a 1 month average. Plus, by going back to last year, they've removed, to make the determination, they've removed the outlier of this last month that we just went through where we laid a bunch of people off, which would artificially reduce the outcome of the average monthly
I
payroll.
mean, the reason you had to let go of people because you couldn't afford them, right? So it would be it'd be crazy. It would never help if you did it based on what the current payroll is.
No,
Uh,
and it would shorten it. Yeah, you're exactly right. But there are other components to this loan that are pretty interesting.
okay.
If when you activate this loan, so let's just say you could apply for it tomorrow, which you can't, by the way, everybody. On 3/27/2020, it's going to probably be another week before the SBA and the banks can get it together.
Sure.
You'll apply at a bank that does SBA loans. If you get approved, and they're saying approval could happen in as quickly as 36 hours if you have your paperwork in order. We believe you can defer accepting the loan until you want to bring it in. Because the purpose of the loan, it has to be spent on payroll and things associated with your employees. And there are a few business associated expenses that you can spend the money on. So
like what kind? Rent?
a mortgage payment, some insurance, they've outlined it. They put several things in there that you can spend it on as well.
Quick question. How about independent contractors?
As I understand it right now, independent contractors are going to have to go through their own version, something in this bill that's designed for them because they're working for themselves.
Right, but what if you have contractors that are working for you that let's say your dental office and you have a bunch of specialists that come to you that routinely come to you and you provide you give would that qualify as wages?
No, those people are self-employed, and there is a provision in the bill for them to apply for help for themselves.
Right, but could you use the loan proceeds to pay for?
You're not supposed to, and it would hurt you because you can't average their pay into. My understanding is because they don't work for you as an employee, you wouldn't be able to average their pay into your payroll, even though. A lot of people work outside of those parameters. If you have a dentist doing general dentistry work in your practice, that's an employee, not an independent contractor. You may have them classified, but you have them misclassified. And at this point, it may hurt both of you.
That's another issue altogether, right? I think
it is another issue. And there's a provision for everybody who is self-employed. I think they're trying to take care of everybody, not just, I'll just leave it at that. Of everybody.
So the provisions. So as far as I understand, this looks like a phenomenal loan program because
it gets even better.
Go ahead. What's next? I'm here. I'm excited.
So I was saying we may want to defer the loan for a few weeks because, like, if you're in Washington State, you can't even open until sometime in mid-May.
Correct.
You're shut down. So you don't want to take that loan and start using it in early May if you can avoid it, because it's primarily to make payroll, and you don't want to be making a payroll and pulling people off of unemployment just so you can burn through a loan and burn through your operating cash.
Right.
I hope we followed that. So let's just say you get the loan. When you do say I accept the loan, you have 8 weeks to spend it. That's important. at the end of the 8 weeks, if you have allotted that money in the proper way by paying your employees and putting it towards anything on that list, and you spend it all and you prove it, the loan is 100% forgiven.
Duh.
Why not? Why not?
Jesus. Okay. That's
Amol,
this is monopoly, right? This really is monopoly.
it is, right?
And then if you don't spend it, I mean, but you use it anyway, then you have to pay it back.
If you don't spend it, whatever portion you don't spend, you are able to convert into a low interest 10-year loan with a 1-year deferment of payments.
Wow. Wow.
It's a real, you know, it's not a silver bullet, but it's definitely one of the 5 or 6 bullets you're going to need, which I think include cash flow that you don't spend right now, that you either have, savings or whatever, lines of credit. And if you want to, if you have to, if maybe you're that giant business or that bigger business with, you know, 40, 950, 100, 200 employees, you can also apply for an SBA disaster loan that won't be forgiven, you know, and you'll have to go through that process.
This is perfect, I think. If it does pass the way, it seems like a dream thing to me right now. I mean, I'm shocked and surprisingly shocked that and the banks obviously will work because banks have no risk, right? It's underwritten by the federal government, so they're just basically agents. They actually make fees in the middle. So banks are going to approve it as long as you've got you can prove that you were in business, you have W-2 employees, and you can prove that all the 941s and everything else.
You're done.
And you can show it to them, and they're going to just approve that. Now, if you use that in 8 weeks to spend it on employees and rent and whatever they as categories, that portion of that loan is going to be forgiven.
Yep.
I wonder if there's going to be cancellation of debt income associated with that, but we'll cross that bridge.
We'll cross that bridge when it happens. Now, there's one more thing that I want to add, Amol.
Sure.
Somewhere in here, there's a little piece of a little part of the equation is that you are supposed to return all of your employees to your payroll in order to be able to get full forgiveness, and not all businesses are going to be able to do that. And you don't, from the way we're interpreting it, you don't have to bring them all back on that day that you say, I'm going to start using this money. You can bring them on gradually. And so long as you've returned them all by the end of the 8 weeks, you will be able to still get full forgiveness. If you're short a couple of employees, and many of you might be, it's just not a big deal, because if any of it's not forgiven, it's just a tiny, tiny amount and it's just moved over. Plus, if you have any money left over, you could also just give it back to the SBA.
You can give it back to the SBA or just use it, right? I mean,
I would convert it. I wouldn't give them anything back.
Why would you do that? You get a 10-year loan to pay back. It actually, Paul, this could make them better off, especially if we come back soon, right? If we have a prolonged shutdown, then everybody's screwed a little bit. But if you come back in June, you would be better off using this opportunity, because you will have some forgiveness, but you'll also be able to have a 10-year note at a low interest rate, reduce your cash flow, and from a cash flow standpoint, you might be better off.
You might be. I mean, it depends on what the economy does trailing out of this. There'll be a big push when we first open back, which, by the way, is incentive for you to bring as many employees back on as possible, because you're gonna have to handle the pent-up demand of your practices. But we don't know what's gonna happen a month and a half after that. And I don't wanna be a negative Nelly, but we don't know that this virus isn't gonna cycle through the country a few times. Sure. And different pockets having to close, you know. So again, I'm all the way back to being a strategic HR business partner. And that's why we immediately went to our members. Most of our members who are only doing emergency services, and they have everybody else laid off, furloughed, stop work. They're on unemployment right now.
You know, I cannot wait to do more of these things with you because it's one of my favorite quotes in the English language is if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And when I feel I am the dumbest person in the room, I feel really good, right?
I
I
do
feel
too.
really good.
Yes.
And I feel really amazed right now that how much I have learned. So I would definitely invite you again to when this law is passed, we'll go through this stuff because I think it's crucially important for people to understand how to do this because this seems to be a no I mean absolutely no brainer.
That we can tell so far, and we have a legislative watch team at CEDR. We formed it because we have to watch all the laws across the country. So we just diverted those 3 people to start reading the bill. And we worked with one of the largest dental CPA firms out of Texas, a company called Kane Waters and Associates. So we've been checking with each other every single day, and their planners and CPAs have been reading through the bill and interpreting, and we've been reading through our part of it. We've been helping one another. And we've been just kind of strategizing because we share we happen to share several hundred members. And
and that's the key, I think, is with any of these bills, the devil's in the details, and
it is.
implementation is tough because it's just reading the Washington Post or CNN is not going to give you any
No,
guidelines on how to do it. The
no.
CPAs have to work with people like you who can read the law but also implement it on the ground. Okay, where does that go on a Form 941? Where do you get the credit, right? Where does it go here? Where does that go there? And so it's fascinating that you've teamed up with the CPA firm to do that. I like the CPA industry a lot.
I
Uh,
know.
they're very smart people, by the way.
That's
Uh,
what I've heard.
well, I'm this lasted longer than I thought, but it was such a crucial topic. We'll do more of this. I'm going to end it with some of your information on the screen right here. CEDR, you can reach him by email. Right now, he's really busy focusing on a lot of his clients, but he will respond back to emails.
I will. And look, we're going to give them a page they can go to that has all of these resources, a group they can join. And we're even going to give them a link out to a page at Kane Waters, which tells them what they need to do to prepare to get the loan, all the stuff they need to gather. We'll share all that with you guys.
And share that all. It's on the screen as you see it. And we will continue this conversation when the law is passed again. And we'll get this information out to as many people as possible because I really feel good about this. And you really made my weekend from this information. I think you're going to make a lot of people's weekend. I want to have you handle our HR stuff when this is over. Yep. I'm going to call our folks and get this going. I could not imagine a better person to help me navigate this at this point in time or in the future. So thank you so much for being on this show, and we will talk soon.
Thank you.